So we are going to move on to the egg recipe. Okay, please take out the egg recipe, egg vanilla recipe. So by the way, 68% of you guys haven't taken a class with me and this is the first time. So I'm happy to see that in a way, and I welcome all of you guys. So here during my class, I generally like to keep it as interactive as possible. And I really like to dig deep into the whys and hows of what we do certain things in a recipe and why we do it in a certain way. Okay. So I'm just, let me take out all the ingredients, keep everything ready. And then we'll do some explaining and brainstorming. Okay. So what we will do, let's complete the recipe first. Okay, then I'll explain in detail why we are using certain ingredient, why we are doing, why we are adding certain ingredients in a certain order. All of these details I will do after completing the recipe. Okay, right. So the first step that you got to do is, so in the recipe, okay, you have clear demarcations on what the dry ingredients are, what the creaming ingredients are, what the wet ingredients are, and what the flavoring agents are. Okay, this is how I like to view my recipe as, okay, as different parts or different roles. Okay, so what we are going to do first, we are going to first sieve the dry ingredients, right? So I have flour here, got to add the flour first. Then I have the leavening agent, which is the baking powder, and I have the salt. I'm going to add that into the flour. Then I have some milk powder. I will tell you the reason why I am using milk powder. Okay. In this recipe, there is no substitute for milk powder, and you will get the milk powder easily in any grocery stores. Okay. So please don't ask me for substitutes. Okay. So I'm going to sieve this at least once. Going to tell you why we sieve also. Okay, but first let's finish the recipe. Okay, I've sieved the dry ingredients. Let's keep this aside. So as a first step, guys, do we have gloves with you? Okay, as a first step, what we need to do is, we're going to add the butter. So the butter that we are using here is unsalted. You can use salted also. I've several times used salted butter also, and it works perfectly fine. Okay, and here I have some lemon zest, right? I have some lemon zest in the recipe. What I'm about to do is I'm going to add this lemon zest to the sugar. And I'm going to use my fingertips to rub it with the sugar. So lemon zest, to get the maximum flavor out of the lemon zest, fresh lemon zest, you got to rub this against the sugar. So all the oils, the essence, so the proper lemon flavor gets infused into the sugar. Okay. So remember that sugar likes to absorb moisture. So as soon as it comes in contact with the zest, what is going to happen is it's going to take all the flavoring and all the moisture from the zest. Okay. Once you finish rubbing it, same thing I do with my orange zest also. Like to rub it with the sugar first. Now let's add the lemon zested sugar here. And let me add the vanilla extract. So I like to use Fab brands vanilla extract. But you can also scrape half vanilla bean and you can use that. Okay, we sell really good grade A plus vanilla beans that we source from Karnataka. I have it in my store, and I gift my students the vanilla bean, and that's one of my favorite ingredients. So if you want to buy it, you can let me know. It's comes at a very nominal price. Okay, so I've added the butter, sugar, the zest and the vanilla here. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start creaming the butter and the sugar together. Okay, meanwhile this lemon juice, okay, I'm going to add it to the milk. Right, so let's take our hand blender or hand beater and I'm going to cream this mixture. Okay, I want it to be pale white, pale yellow, pale, nicely aerated. Okay, perfect. So this took about a minute or two, not more than that. So you can see that the butters become almost white combined with the sugar. Okay, it's important for your butter to be cold, a little bit firm but still soft. Okay, so basically I've taken out the butter out from the fridge and I've kept it out for about 20 to 30 minutes. That's the temperature you're looking at. So if you just press the butter in, it has to have some kind of resistance, but still your finger should go in. Okay, that's the consistency you're looking at. Okay, so butter and the sugar are creamed with the lemon zest and the vanilla. Now I'm going to add the eggs one at a time. So I'm going to add one egg. Okay, that is combined. Now I'm going to add another. So I always add it one at a time because eggs are always rich in moisture, right? So when you try to add moisture to something fatty, what happens? Water and oil, does it mix? No, it does not. So you got to add it one by one and mix it to have a homogeneous mixture. Okay, that is combined. Now I'm going to add the last egg. Alternatively, what you can do is you can add the 3 eggs separately in a bowl. Beat the 3 eggs separately until it's nice and fluffy, and then you can combine that in smaller portions into the butter and the sugar mixture. Okay, great. So now we are going to add the dry ingredients. So with this, the role of my hand mixer is done. Okay, so now you need to no longer use the beater or anything like a whisk to combine your flour. So I'm going to add the first portion of the dry ingredient. I'm going to scrape the sides, cut through the center and fold it over. Scrape the sides, cut through the center, fold it over. So repeat this action. Just be gentle because you have accumulated some air so far in your batter. So you got to keep that. Okay. So the first addition was my dry ingredients. I'm going to add my milk and the lemon juice mixture to loosen this out. Same thing, scrape the sides, cut through the center, fold it over. Okay, see at this point your batter might look curdled depending on whether or not your ingredients were at the room temperature. Okay, so whenever something looks curdled, what is the reason? It's because the ingredients haven't binded or emulsified properly, right? That is the reason. So in case of butter, butter is fat and eggs are full of moisture. So they do not, if they don't combine properly or emulsify properly, it will look curdled or broken. So it doesn't matter. Once you start adding your flour, the flour is going to absorb some of the moisture and bring the batter together homogeneously. Okay, so I've added the last amount of milk and lemon juice together. Going to continue the cut and fold method. So when you do the cut and fold, make sure to go all the way down and then mix the batter up all the way from the bottom of the bowl. Okay. So once it's combined, you're going to no longer keep mixing it too much. Okay. I'll tell you the reason why in a while. So the batter is ready. You can see that usually butter cake batters are pretty thick like this, almost in a drop consistency. Okay, so this is the consistency of the batter. Okay, so note that the consistency of the batter will also depend on the kind of flour you use. Okay, some of you might be from outside India, so you might be using a different quality of flour. Here also we use different quality of flour. So different flours have different absorption capacity of moisture. So because of that, the final consistency of the batter may vary very slightly, but don't worry if you're following the recipe to the T. So now I have an aluminium pan. Okay, I have an aluminium pan. I've just applied some butter throughout the bottom and the sides everywhere. Okay, and I also have a parchment paper. If you can see, I've lined it. Okay, sometimes what you can do is you can just dust the entire inside of the pan with flour a couple of times, nicely coat it nicely, and then take off the excess like this. Okay, do it one more time. Add a spoon of flour, then make sure it's covered nicely. Make sure to cover the sides also, and then take off the excess flour. Or you can simply put one parchment paper. Anything is fine. Now I'm going to add all of my batter to this pan. So I'm using a 7-inch pan as mentioned in your recipe. I'm going to use my spatula, just gently spread it out. And I'm going to preheat my oven to 160 to 170. I like to bake the cakes at slightly lesser temperature for a little bit longer so that it's not raising too vigorously or doesn't have too many cracks or big domes on top. Okay, so always reduce the temperature and bake it at 160 to 170. That's what I generally follow. Okay, I'll come to all of your questions in a while. Now this is going to go into the oven to bake. Okay, we'll do a quick session on what, like the ingredients of the roles of the ingredients and why we do certain steps in a certain way. Okay, so basically I want to show you some flashcards so you can remember. You can take screenshots and keep. Okay, yeah. So I will switch to the top view. Can you guys see the flashcard at the moment? Okay, so basically we make the sponges in these three ways. Mostly all of the sponges or the cakes that we make, they're broadly classified in one of these three methods. Okay, so the first one is going to be the creaming method. Okay, one is going to be a mixing method, one is going to be a foaming method. Okay, so we have loads of recipes on the internet. We have sponge cake, we have butter cake, we have pound cake, we have angel cake, we have chiffon cake, we have Genoise cake, we have Victorian sponge cake, we have so many different kinds of cakes, right? We have eggless cakes, which are totally different from egg based cakes. So most of the sponges, almost all of the sponges fall under one of these three methods. Okay, one is creaming, mixing and foaming. So I'm going to explain what these three are quickly. So we will have a fun short quiz at the end of the session, so stay till there. So first method is going to be a creaming method. Okay, so creaming method is most of the butter based sponges are going to be in creaming method. Okay, why it is called creaming is because you're going to cream the butter and the sugar together and start accumulating the air from the first step. Okay, so what happens when you cream the butter and sugar? The crystals of sugar are going to cut through the fat and it's going to introduce air into your butter. Okay, it's going to aerate your butter. So that's why you see when you start with the butter and sugar, it's going to look a little bit lesser, and by the time you finish creaming the butter and sugar, it's going to look more pale, a little bit higher in volume also. Okay, that's because you've added air into the batter using your creaming process. Okay, that is the creaming method. Most of the eggless sponges that are oil based, okay, with oil what we do, we cannot cream it with the sugar. It makes no sense because sugar cannot aerate oil. So most of the oil based sponges, both egg and eggless, will fall under the mixing method, where you will have all the dry ingredients in one bowl and all the wet ingredients in another bowl, and then you're just going to combine it together, give a quick mix, and that's about it. Okay, so most of the oil based egg or egg free sponges are going to be in mixing method. And then you have foaming method. Okay, foaming method is where that recipe will not have any leavening agents like your baking powder or baking soda. Okay, it's not going to have any of those. So an example for foaming method is going to be a Genoise sponge cake, where you will start beating your eggs and sugar. Okay, so the eggs and sugar are going to double and triple. Yeah, the eggs are going to double and triple in volume. Okay, and then they're going to be such a huge fluffy mixture, and then at the very end we are going to fold the sponge, we are going to fold the flour gently in the egg and the sugar mixture, and then you bake it. Okay, so that is your Genoise sponge. Okay, even there are certain sponges like chiffon cake, angel food cake. So these are kind of sponges that needs the egg whites to be beaten nicely, and then that is going to aerate your sponge. That is going to give the light and the airy feeling to it. Okay, so these kind of sponges are called foaming sponges. So we are not covering foaming method here. So in my Black Forest sponge recipe or the chiffon cake in my website, you can find the foaming method of cake making, and you can follow those recipes. You can check out those courses for foaming method. Okay, so here in today's session we are going to be doing creaming and mixing method. Okay, that's about it. So you clear till now? Okay, so any sponge recipes you're seeing on the internet, you need to now try to understand what the method is, creaming or mixing or foaming method. Okay, great. Now we'll move to the next. So I'm going to quickly go into the nuances of what the ingredients are going to be. So can we go to the top view again? Okay, so first of all, I'll come to flour. Okay, let me not go too deep into it because now it's going to be too much of information, is going to confuse a lot of beginners, but I'll be as precise and as much as required I will tell you. Okay, so the flour that we use generally in cakes or cookies in India is going to be all purpose flour, or it's also known as maida. Okay, so here in maida the amount, so there is a protein content in your flour, and that is called gluten. Okay, so based on the percentage of gluten, there are different grades of flour available. Outside India you can find it very commonly. In India it is slowly starting to come in. different grades of flour are slowly starting to appear in the supermarkets, like cake flour, soft flour, bread flour, T55, T65. I'm not going to go into too much details because that's over the scope of the class. I could keep talking on and on. We could take the full day, but let me just be a bit precise, okay? So flour is going to be maida, and what it does to our cakes, it is going to offer the structure. So basically that is the framework, it is the structure to your cake. So take an example of a normal cleaning sponge. You have this, have you seen this rectangular sponge that people use for cleaning the surfaces and all? Something like that. So you have a network of sponge material, and when you squeeze it and put it inside water and then take it out, it's going to absorb all the water, okay? So basically the network of the sponge material is holding the water. Similarly in our cake, the network of the flour, that is the gluten, slight gluten formation, is going to hold the air in your cake, okay? It's very similar to the sponge holding water and the flour holding the air in your batter, okay? So basically that offers the structure. Now, next ingredient is going to be your baking powder and the baking soda. Both of them are called leavening agents, okay? What are leavening agents? They help to leaven your batter into a cake. Basically, they introduce air into your cake, okay? So, what is baking powder? The difference between baking powder and baking soda, okay? Baking powder is a compound, is a material that has an acid and an alkali, okay? A powdered form of an acid and a powdered form of an alkali mixed together with some kind of starch. That starch could be corn flour, it could be wheat flour, it could be different kinds of tapioca starch, it could be anything, okay? So basically what happens, this acid and the base, when it combines and in the presence of water, that is moisture, and in the presence of heat, it is going to give out carbon dioxide. This is a basic chemistry we have studied. I'm not sure if everybody remembers, but when an acid and an alkali reacts together, it produces carbon dioxide in the presence of moisture and heat. Remember this, okay? So the baking powder itself has both of the materials available, okay? And when you add it to water, it starts reacting first time, and into the oven when you put it in under heat, is going to act for a second time, okay? So there are sometimes there is single acting baking powder and there is double acting baking powder, okay? Most of the baking powders that is available these days are double acting baking powder, right? So the baking powder will not react much unless and until you put it inside the oven, okay? For this reason, what happens is, if you have a batter like this, the egg based batter that we just did now, it has only baking powder, right? So since it has only baking powder and it's going to start reacting only in the presence of heat, you can keep this batter out for some time. Okay, so it's not going to deflate, it's not going to deflate too much. So you can keep out the batter for some time, or you can keep it in the fridge for up to 1 or 2 days and then thaw it and then bake it later also, okay. So the maximum time you can keep an egg based batter in the fridge is 3 days, okay, because it contains dairy and eggs and everything. Always thumb rule, not more than 3 days, don't keep anything more than 3 days, okay. So that is your baking powder. So baking soda is the alkaline portion that we were talking about. In the baking powder, there's always sodium bicarbonate along with another acid, okay. So that acid could be different based on the company producing it. It could be different kinds of acids, okay. And baking soda is always sodium bicarbonate, and sodium bicarbonate is usually the soda that we use, okay. So that is the alkali. So whenever you have baking soda in a recipe, which is an alkali, you got to have an acid for it to react with, okay. So some examples of acid could be milk, which is lactic acid, yogurt or curd, dahi, that is also lactic acid. You have lemon juice, which is citric acid. Then you have vinegar, which is acetic acid. And then you have tartaric acid. So these are different kinds of acid that baking soda will react with, and it's going to produce carbon dioxide in the batter, okay. So just remember this at the moment. So basically baking powder and baking soda are leavening agents. Now let's come to an interesting part, which is your egg. Are we in the top? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll put it on the... Okay. So egg plays a lot of roles. So it's basically one of he's like a gangster. So so as much as like you may not work with it, egg is like a gangster and you can't avoid him. So he gives the best results for the final results of an egg. So if you see, it plays a lot of roles, and I'm going to explain in detail what it's going to do, okay, in your cake. So first you have the egg white. Let's take the egg white part first, okay. So the egg white part, first of all, it is a great leavening agent, okay. So how it's a leavening agent? Because it can trap air. So for example, an omelette. So you just break an egg onto your hot pan and then make an omelette. That is going to be different. And you break a couple of eggs and then whisk it nicely, beat it nicely, and then you make an omelette. That's going to be more fluffy. That's because the protein strands in your egg white are capable of holding air. Okay, so that makes your product airy. So that's why it's a great leavening agent. So that's why egg makes a great leavening agent in your foaming method. Great. The second role that egg whites play is moisture, adding moisture, okay. So egg whites are 90% water and 10% only protein, okay. So egg whites, since they contain 90% water, that water is being added to your batter, and that's going to add moisture. Because of the addition of proteins also, it's going to tenderize your crumbs. Proteins always tenderize your crumbs, remember this, okay. Then third one is the structure. So it's going to offer structure in your cake. How? Just a simple example, okay. So egg white is liquid at room temperature, right. The moment you put it on a hot pan, what happens? It becomes solid. Why? Because proteins will coagulate in the presence of heat. Coagulation means there will be protein chains, they will just form a tight network like a matrix, okay. They will form a tight network and they solidify in the presence of heat, okay. That offers structure for your cake, okay. So egg whites play these three roles. And then if you see egg yolk, that also plays different set of roles. So egg yolk is a great binding agent. Have you seen, like while making cutlets, you add different things like minced vegetables, potatoes, breadcrumbs and all of these, and then you finally add like one egg or egg yolk and then just bring everything together and then press it in between your fingers. So it's like a great binding agent, yeah. The fat contained in it is a great binding agent, okay. And it's also a great emulsifying agent. So that's the second role of the egg yolk. It's a great emulsifying agent. How? Like when you make mayonnaise, if you notice, you take a mixie jar, you add egg yolk, you add oil, you add lemon juice, you add salt, pepper, some seasoning, some vinegar, and then you blend it high speed. What happens? The egg yolk is going to emulsify everything, okay. What is emulsification? To bring two or more ingredients together in a homogeneous mixture, okay. So what is homogeneous mixture? You cannot see a mayonnaise and tell like, okay, it had yolk, it had oil, it had lemon juice or the salt or seasoning. You cannot tell because everything is homogenized. Homogenized means everything is combined together into one single product, okay. So that is emulsification. So it's an excellent emulsifying agent, okay. And third, it offers lots of flavor to your product, okay. So since egg yolks have a lot of fat, wherever you use lot of fat, even in cooking, we add lot of butter and lot of ghee and cook it, you know, tastes really good because fat is going to offer a lot of flavor. Similarly, your egg yolks are going to add lots of flavor, okay. So just imagine it has all these 6 diverse roles that it's playing, okay. So can you simply substitute one egg with banana puree or flaxseed or yogurt? Can you do that? No, you cannot, because he is an OG, as I told you, he's a gangster. So you need, you know, many people to come and take his position, okay. You need more ingredients to make up for different kinds of roles. So in the eggless recipe, I will explain how to identify what to use instead of what role, okay. We need to understand, analyze what we need, and then we need to use other different kinds of ingredients accordingly, okay. Understood everything clear about the egg? You can always rewatch, you can always take screenshots of the flashcards, okay. Great, now we are going to the egg substitutes, okay. So we already saw that egg whites are great leavening agents, and it also adds a lot of moisture. So what we are going to do here, for leavening agents, what we are going to do is we are also going to add baking soda. In spite of baking powder being there, we are also going to add baking soda to the mixture in our eggless recipe, okay. And if baking soda is there, as I mentioned before, which is an alkaline substance, then we need an acid for it to react with, and that's why we are adding milk and yogurt also, okay. So baking soda or any kind of acid like vinegar also we are adding in our eggless recipe. So baking soda and vinegar are going to react with to provide carbon dioxide, which is going to leaven, okay. So that is our leavening agent. And milk, it's adding a lot of moisture because it's containing a lot of water content, and it also has a lot of proteins because protein tenderizes your crumbs, right. So milk is meant for that, and yogurt also has a lot of protein, it has a lot of fat also, so it has moisture also. That is going to offer structure for your cake, it's going to offer tenderized crumbs, and is also going to add a lot of flavor because of the fat content present in your yogurt, okay. So different, for egg yolk we are using yogurt for the flavor and the structure, and for the moisture part we are adding the milk, and for the leavening part we are adding the baking soda and the vinegar, okay. So different kinds. Some of the recipes, like my best ever vanilla cake eggless, which is there on my website, I use club soda. So club soda is the carbonated water that you find, no, in generally cool drink shops you find just plain carbonated water, they call it soda. So I use that to add more carbon dioxide in my recipe, okay. So different kinds of substitutes are there, and we got to just pick and choose what we want to use, okay. Can you guys hear me? Oh, can you guys hear me? I think everyone's like listening to me. Right. Let's go to the next one, next ingredient. Okay, we're going to discuss about butter and oil. I'm sure today we are going to shoot the timing. Okay, so we're going to discuss about butter and oil. Okay, so basically butter and oil are fat. So fat offers flavor. As I mentioned with your egg yolk, it's going to add a lot of flavor to your recipe, and it also adds a lot of moistness to your cake, okay. So generally oil based cakes are more moist, but they lack a little bit of flavor because butter contains milk solids, okay. So butter contains milk solids, that is going to add a lot of flavor to your cake, but oil based cakes keep your cake sponges moist, but they lack in a little bit of flavor. That's why I prefer to use butter always as compared to oil, okay. So the next component or the next ingredient we're looking at is sugar, okay. Sugar is also has multiple roles to play in your cake, okay. It's not there just for sweetness. This is a lot of people's understanding, is sugar is there just to offer sweetness, and if I remove or reduce the sugar, I can reduce the sponge, the sweetness of the sponge, and it will be just fine. But there will be definitely changes in texture of the result, okay. Because sugar is first of all, it offers sweetness for the flavor, and it also aerates very well, okay. So with the butter, sugar combined with butter, we saw is going to aerate the butter, okay. Similarly, in foaming method, what it does, the sugar, when you add it to the eggs, the sugar is going to reinforce, it's going to strengthen the proteins, and it's going to help the proteins hold more air. This is the same with the meringue also. So with French meringue, what you do, you start beating your egg whites, and then after some time you start adding the sugar to the egg whites, okay. So the sugar is going to strengthen the protein and is going to help the protein hold more air and more volume, okay. So it helps in the aeration process. Then sugar is also hydrophilic. Hydrophilic is the opposite of hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means it doesn't like the water. Hydrophilic is it likes the water, okay. So since it likes the water, and it it keeps the moistness of the sponge intact, okay, doesn't let the sponge dry, okay. So that is the meaning of hydrophilic, okay. Another example of hydrophilic is salt, right. So when during monsoon seasons, we put a little bit of rice inside the salt shaker. Have you noticed? This kind of absorbs all the moisture and keeps the salt free flowing, right? Similarly, sugar is also, it attracts the moisture and it keeps your sponge really moist, okay. And the most important thing is sugar also offers the color and the caramelization and the browning of your cake. So the vanilla cake, if it has a beautiful brown caramelization on top, the browning, that's because of the presence of sugar. The sugar along with some protein during the baking process, they caramelize and they cause the browning, and this is called the Maillard's reaction, okay. So the caramelization, for the caramelization part, sugar is really important, okay. So next ingredient, milk and milk powder. I've already discussed. It tenderizes your crumb because it's adding a lot of moisture and protein and fat to it. It tenderizes your crumb. Same thing, since we used milk powder here, milk powder is the dehydrated milk. So basically, without adding the liquid part, I am adding the protein and the fat part to it, okay. So that is going to tenderize my crumbs, okay. Yogurt, milk, vinegar, lemon juice, all of these are different kinds of acids that wants to react with baking soda and provide carbon dioxide, right. So now, once it releases carbon dioxide in the batter, what happens inside the oven? You put the batter inside the oven, right. So what happens now? The oven is running at 160, 170 degrees. Now first thing what happens, the water content in your batter is going to convert into steam. Water converts into steam at what degrees? Can you guys answer? I need some water. Yeah, thank you. Water converts into steam at what temperature? Just put it in the comments. Are they answering? 100, perfect, yes. So when it crosses, when the temperature of the batter crosses 100 degrees, the water first of all is going to convert into steam. Thank you so much. And the steam is also going to kind of help to raise your batter, right? So in choux pastry, if you see, the steam is your leavening agent. The choux pastry, when you have piped it, because of the steam, it's going to puff up like this. So steam is also a great leavening agent for your batter, okay. So the steam is going to start raising your batter, and once the steam is out, what happens? Gases expand under heat. Remember that gases will expand under heat, and elements contract when the temperature cools down, and they expand under heat. Remember this, okay. So when the carbon dioxide, when the reaction between baking soda, baking powder and all the leavening agents happen, all the carbon dioxide slowly they start expanding inside the oven. Millions of molecules of carbon dioxide, they help to raise your batter, okay. So the raise, and what happens? The eggs, the proteins, or whatever, the yogurt, the milk, the proteins also coagulate, or they solidify at certain temperatures, okay. So when that temperature crosses, all of them will solidify and structurize, okay. So by the time the gases are all expanding, meanwhile the proteins will coagulate, the starch will gelatinize, the flour will set the structure to the cake, and then final reaction would be the Maillard's reaction with the sugar and the protein. You have a brown even caramelization on top, okay. So this is what happens inside the oven. So during this process, if you open the oven or put your skewer stick inside before it's completely set, what happens? The cake will sink in the middle. This is what happens, okay. So try and leave it till the last 10 minutes. You will not open the oven door and let it cook completely, okay. So this is what happens. Now just a few more things before we move on to the eggless cake recipe, okay. Can we move to the top view? So I want to explain why we do certain things in certain way. Are we on the top view? Okay. So why do we sieve the dry ingredients? There should be a reason for every step, right? And there should be a reason to why we do certain steps in certain order. So why do we sieve the dry ingredients? 4 big reasons. First is we need to disperse your leavening agents, baking powder and baking soda, evenly into your dry ingredients. Second, you need to aerate your dry ingredients also. Just like how you aerate your butter, you need to aerate your dry ingredients also. And when you beat the eggs, you aerate the eggs also. Okay, so every step of your cake making involves aerating those ingredients. Okay, all these accumulations of air bubbles will definitely make a fine, difference in your final product. So aerating your dry ingredients is your second reason. Then eliminate impurities. Sometimes maida, when you don't buy a good quality maida, any branded is fine, but some shops do sell unbranded ones. They contain a lot of impurities, okay? So they need to be removed. And in case of you sieving your cocoa powder and stuff like that, then you got to remove the lumps from there. So we need an evenly aerated, dispersed, pure, lump-free dry ingredient, okay? That's why we sieve the dry ingredients, okay? Don't skip the drying process. And creaming, I've discussed why. The butter to increase the volume and to introduce air into it. That is why we cream the butter. And one more important, very, very important thing. Why do we fold the flour and why can't we use the beater to combine the flour? Okay. So, flour, when it comes in contact with water, what happens? Small strands of gluten starts to form, okay? So flour, when it is dry, the gluten chains do not form, okay? Immediately when in contact with water, what happens? The gluten starts forming links or chains with one another, okay? They start forming it slowly and constantly, they start forming each other. So for cakes, now I want to discuss with you. So I'm sure most of you guys would have made the roti dough, right? Where we add the flour and we add the water and then we mix it and then we keep kneading it and kneading it and kneading it. What happens finally to the roti dough? It becomes elastic. It becomes rubbery. It kind of becomes springy, if you understand what I mean, okay? So it becomes springy. And when you cook the roti, how is the mouthfeel of the roti? It is chewy. It is chewy and it is dense, right? That is the exact reason why we do not want gluten to form. Okay, so that is why we want minimal contact of the flour with water. Okay, so in our recipe, when we added eggs, we are adding a lot of moisture, right? And then the next step would be to add the flour. So that's why we add the flour and then gently use the spatula to combine it into the batter without initiating too much of gluten formation, okay? There will be certain gluten formed, you cannot avoid that, but if you keep on over mixing it or if you agitate it too much with your hand mixer, what happens? The crumb of your cake will become dense and chewy, which is why we don't use the hand mixer, okay? So try and use the spatula. If you have a stand mixer, you can switch to the paddle attachment, that is fine, and run it at slow. Okay, so this is why we do not want the tight network of the gluten formation. We want it to be tender, we want it to be melt in mouth. We don't want it to be chewy and dense. Great. This is why we fold the flour. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to pick up the ingredients for the eggless vanilla cake and let's quickly do it. Yes, so I want to ask you guys if you are happy with whatever eggless recipe you are using currently. So Akash will put a poll on your screen and he's, yeah, so you can just let me know if you are happy with your current eggless sponge recipe. So you can answer the poll and then I can see it. So I'm just setting up all the ingredients for the vanilla cake, eggless vanilla cake. Are the results out? 50-50. Wow, that's nice. Okay, since I trained in a pastry school and in French pastry schools, there is no concept of eggless baking. They'll be like, what what can you even do without eggless? Because they are very like, in the sense they are very traditional. And they don't like to experiment too much. Either they go totally into veganism or they do completely with eggs. So there's no like this middle ground of doing eggless, because this eggless market is completely and a very Indian thing, I feel, or people who have egg allergies. So I never had any training in egg-free baking, and all of the egg-free recipes that I do are completely either the ones that I learned from somebody else, or it could be like totally my best ever vanilla cake eggless recipe is a total experiment. Okay, lots of years of experiment. So it's a 50-50, nice to know. So I have all my ingredients here. Yeah, we have some questions? Yes, yeah, let me finish this eggless recipe also, then I'll take the questions for both the recipes, okay? Since this also needs to be baked, okay? So I'm going to start by sieving the dry ingredients, okay? So I have flour and salt here, okay? So I'm going to put it in the sieve. And I have the leavening agents here, baking powder, baking soda. Let's sieve it at least once. If you can, sieve it twice. Okay, so the dry ingredients are set and kept ready here. So in another bowl, I'm going to add the butter, soft butter. Whenever you use creaming method, the butter's got to be soft, not soggy, not too loose, okay? And then here I have some lemon zest and the sugar, which I'm just going to rub it. Let the sugar take in all the lemon flavor. Okay. Add in the sugar, zested lemon sugar. And I'm also going to add the vanilla extract. And the vinegar that I have here, okay, I'm going to add it to the milk. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to cream this mixture, okay, and then I'm going to add the yogurt instead of the eggs. Is this on? New. Oh, I have to connect it here. Let me scrape the sides, just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to add the yogurt. So this is just the normal dahi. The ones that you set in your house also you can use. Try to not take the watery part, just take the thick part. Okay, I'm going to just like your last recipe, I am going to add some of the dry ingredients. Cut it and fold. Scrape the sides, cut through the center, fold it. Scrape the sides, cut through the center, fold it over. Okay. Okay, so now, why do we alternate the flour and the dry ingredients and the wet mixture, the wet ingredients? Is because if you add all the dry ingredients at first, it's going to be really tight for you to mix it in. Okay, and if you add all the wet ingredients in at first, then your mixture is going to be really liquidy, and then when you add the flour, it's going to form a lot of lumps. So to avoid the lumping part, we do an alternative folding of your dry ingredients and the wet ingredients. Okay. So again, this is done. Remaining dry ingredients, scrape it, cut through, fold over. So since the egg-free batter has baking powder and baking soda, do you guys think that we can keep the batter out for some time, come back to it 2-3 hours later and then bake it? What do you guys think? You can write it in comments. What do you think? Can we keep it out for some time, for a couple of hours, and then bake it? Or maybe even refrigerate it and then bake it the next day? What do you think? What are the answers? Huh? No? Are they saying no? Are there some yes? There are yeses? No yeses? Can I see the comment section? No, yes. No. Okay, so the answer is you can keep it out for a couple of hours and then come back to it and then bake it. Or maybe even put it in the fridge and then bake it the next day, because baking powder is also there. And baking powder will act under the action of heat. Okay? Great. So the batter is done. Now I am going to divide it into two 7-inch pans. So there is an option, just like our egg recipe, you can do it in one tin itself. That will give you a taller sponge. Okay, so if you divide the batter, you will get two small, like a shorter, less heighted sponge. Okay, so you can do either. Just note the timing. The timing will vary. The thinner your sponge is, the lesser the time it will take. Vivek? The cake is out from the oven. The egg cake. Just now? Okay, just let me know. Okay, I'm just going to just even it out. So this is going to be a thin sponge, like a single sponge which you can directly use for icing. Okay, I'm going to give this to my people to put it in the oven. Okay, so how you will check the cake whether it is done or not? You will insert the skewer right in the middle. Yeah, you can take this. You can keep it here. Give me the oven mitts also. Okay, so this is our vanilla cake is out from the oven. You should see that there is, the cake is springing away from the sides of the cake. There's a gap. There's a little gap, right, between the tin and the cake. So it is springing away from the sides of the cake. It is springy to touch also, and the skewer inserted in the center has come out clean without any moist crumbs. Okay, that's how you know that the cake is done. Okay, so you will see. Now that I put the entire batter in one pan itself, that is why I have a little dome and a little crack, because this is a mark of the steam coming out. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the sponge. This is how the steam comes out from the sponge. And there's a slight dome. Whereas now the eggless sponge that I'm going to bake, those are going to come with lesser dome and with no cracks. You will see. Okay, so this is going to go into the cooling rack to cool. Nice. I'll just leave it here. And Vivek, this one also. Sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to take some questions quickly. This one. Give me a second just to clean up. Okay, coming to the questions. I think I have to scroll all the way up. Okay, I prefer using, Sprig is okay, it's not that great, but it's okay. Sprig brand is average, I would say. You can use Fab's vanilla extract, or you can just make your own vanilla extract. So let me show you mine. So I have this bottle here where I just slit all the vanilla beans that I had. Okay, put it inside the bottle and fill it all the way up with either vodka or glycerine if you don't want to use alcohol. Okay, after about 6 to 7 months, it starts getting dark and really, intense in flavor. Then you can use this one. Okay. If milk is over in an urgency, need to bake, can you use milk powder mixed with water? Absolutely, you can use that. Absolutely, you can. So, baking soda, although it will react immediately, okay, the kind of acid that is used in the baking powder will only act under the presence of heat. Okay, so the reaction between baking soda and the usual acids that are there in the recipe, they will be just the first level of reaction, and they will be not very vigorous. They will be very less. They will be very less, and not much of gas is released through that. But then the acid that certain companies use in the baking powder, that will react very vigorously with the alkaline mixture, and that will give out a lot of carbon dioxide under heat. Okay, so that is why it's okay to leave the batter out for some time and then come back to it. Can we use butter and oil equal proportions in eggless sponge? You can, absolutely you can, but the taste will definitely vary. Will there be any difference if you bake directly fresh or keep it in the fridge and bake the next day? Not so much, but there will definitely be a difference in texture when between baking it fresh and baking it after some time. There's definitely some reaction, there's some difference, but people may notice, may not notice, depends. Okay, so Asha is asking what will be the final weight of the eggless sponge after baking from this recipe. So whenever you want to find the total weight of this recipe or any recipe that you're baking, just make sure to add all the ingredients, and then plus or minus 50 grams will be the total yield. Okay. Speed of the beater does not matter throughout the entire process, so don't worry. Okay, baking with both rods on or only bottom rod. So if you're using an OTG, I would recommend just the bottom rod on. Okay, that is what I was using when I was using OTG. The milk powder brand name that I've been using is Nestle. Nestle is the name of the brand name of the milk powder. Yes, if you want to make 3 layers, you can prepare the entire batter and you can bake it one after the other in case you have a small oven. Okay, so the difference between a confit and a compote, you mentioned in the confit. No, I didn't say confit, I said coulis. Coulis is just the thickened puree of the fruit itself with little added sugar. Is it necessary to tap the cake batter before putting it in the oven? I generally don't do it, but you can totally do that, no problem. If the batter is thick, then I tend to do that. If the batter is flowy and in a good consistency, then I don't do the tapping part. I do not add preservatives. Someone's asking, can we add preservatives in eggless recipe? I have no idea about it. The shelf life would be around 3 to 4 days, and that's about it. Why do we get sticky top on butter cakes? If you get sticky top on butter cakes, do try to turn on the top rod for the last 10 minutes and allow it to completely cool down before cling wrapping it, okay? For a 1 kg cake, what will be the proportion weight of sponge and frosting? There is no hard, fast rule for this because every cake, the weight will be different, every frosting's weight will be different, and every filling's weight will be different. So I cannot give you a proportion because based on what recipe you're using, what frosting you're using, what filling you're using, it will vary. Okay, so there's no hard and fast rule. People say 600, 400, 550, 450 and all, but it never works because if you want to be creative and do different fillings and frostings, you can never follow this ratio. What kind of yogurt we need to add to the eggless recipe? I am using just plain dahi, I think Milky Mist dahi, doesn't matter, anything is fine. Don't use a sour one, just use a normal plain fresh one. Okay, temperature, everything at room temperature needs to be added, okay? Difference between lemon added to milk and vinegar added to milk. So basically lemon is the pH level of lemon is not as less as vinegar. Vinegar is much more acidic than lemon juice. In some recipes you can use them interchangeably. Like in cake recipes, you can use them interchangeably, but in certain recipes they don't work well when you interchange it. But more or less it's the same. It's an acid basically, and it has to react with baking soda to give carbon dioxide. That is what we're looking at. Same quantity. If you want to replace vinegar, same quantity is good. Butter cake does go hard in the fridge because butter goes hard in the fridge, okay? So what you need to do with butter cakes is try to bring it out from the fridge onto the room temperature for at least 1 or 2 hours and then serve it to your guests. Just the timing is the only trick here. The brand of vanilla extract I used was Fab, F-A-B, Fab. If you want to know how to incorporate club soda for a softer sponge, you can please go and enroll in my best ever egg-free vanilla cake recipe, and you'll get to know about it. Sometimes if you have eggy smell, so if you use lemon zest and good quality vanilla, you will not get the eggy smell. Okay. Any sugar can be used, caster sugar, powdered sugar, both of them will work. Can we use condensed milk in eggless sponge? Yes, there are different recipes that use condensed milk also. I also have a lot of courses of eggless sponges that have condensed milk in them. But this is something that you don't need condensed milk. Condensed milk is not necessary for this recipe, and it will work out just fine. I place the cake in the middle level of the OTG if you're asking about that. So middle one is the right one. Can we store the lemon or orange zested sugar for later bakes also? Absolutely you can. Osoro is also good vanilla essence, but not extract. Essence is good. How to make cremo in bulk if the order is in bulk? Just scale up the recipe. Just multiply the entire thing by 2, 3, 4, 50, 500. Anything works. Just scale the recipe and it will work just fine. Baking soda and baking powder, Wickfield is good. Anything works pretty much. Just make sure it's a new batch, it's not expiring, okay? Fab bottle, I don't know, I will show you probably later. Yeah, so the entire cake, if it's a butter cake, you need to take it out from the fridge and keep it in an AC room at least for an hour so that it comes to room temperature. And also make sure the thickness of your sponge is not too much, okay? If it's too much, then it's going to take a lot of time to thaw. Make sure the sponge is not more than 1 inch thickness. 1 inch thickness. Okay, so why do eggless sponges deflate after baking? This recipe will not deflate, so probably you can try it and let me know. No, I did not beat the eggless more than the egg. Both of them were absolutely the same amount of beating. Okay, so then what can be done? That's a good question. What can be done during power cut mid baking? So I'll tell you what I do. I just keep calm first thing, and then I pray to God, and then I ask God to give the power back again. And mostly it comes back in 5 to 10 minutes. And the cake continues baking and it will be done fine. So, okay. Anything else? Vaishnavi is asking why didn't we add milk powder in the eggless recipe. In the eggless recipe there's already a lot of moisture like from the yogurt, from the milk also, so we're not using milk powder. You can try and experiment by adding milk powder also. You can let me know how it went. So this is just normal maida I'm using, cake flour, okay. I do not, someone's asking about cake gel, veg gel. Veg gel, okay, I'm not sure, I have not used it. Okay, comments are coming up, 1 minute. Yes, instead of fruit cremo, can we also make it nuts like pistachio cremo? You can, but I'm not going to cover that in this class. Flour brand, there is a brand called Maida, Naga Maida. So that's what I use. That's available in all the supermarkets. Anything good brand is fine. Reverse creaming, I'm not going to cover in this class, I'm sorry, it's out of scope. Okay, so someone's asking, chef, it's difficult to use cut and fold method for large quantity. So if you have a large quantity, what you can do is you can use the paddle attachment and run it at slow speed. Okay. Soaking of sponges, I will come when I'm going to do the icing. This recipe absolutely can be used for tiered cakes, buttercream cakes, fresh cream cakes, anything is fine. Guys, it's difficult for me to tell you something regarding your recipe because I haven't done your recipe. So it's very difficult for me to tell you why your cake is becoming hard, why your cake is becoming sticky on top. It's, yeah. So let's stick to the recipes that we're doing in class here. How to add eggs in big batches, just like this, 2 to 3 eggs at a time, you will add it, okay? Vegetable oil, if you want to use, you can use sunflower oil, any neutral. Okay. Almost at the end of the comments. Thank you so much, everyone. Sweet of you. They're asking me to sit and answer. Okay, how to halve the egg recipe as 3 eggs are used. Simple, just break one egg, beat it, and then take 25 grams from it. 1 egg is 50 grams, remember that. Okay, 1 egg is 50 grams, so take 25 grams from it. Remaining 25 grams, make a small omelette and have it with your food. Thanks, Bash. Yeah, so we are going to stick to gram measurements only, no cup measurements, so that it's consistent. Okay, you can reduce the sugar up to 20%, not more than that. If you want to reduce the sugar, reduce it up to 20%, not more than that. Shelf life is already given in your recipe booklets. Is brown sugar any better than white sugar? No, it's not. Both of them are the same, so don't bother. Unless and until you want the flavor of the brown sugar, then you can use brown sugar. Okay, please use a weighing scale, buy a weighing scale, it's a good investment, it will give you consistent results. If you want to be a professional, then you have to use a measuring scale, okay? No more cups and spoons. Why do we add lemon zest to vanilla? It's very little lemon zest, so it's not going to give too much of lemon flavor, okay? Okay, can we use wheat flour? Okay, just one last question before we move to the next one. So we are not going to use wheat flour because wheat flour is a mixture of the fiber, the bran part and the endosperm and the germ. Okay, the if you see the structure of a wheat, it has a fiber part and it has a germ and it has an endosperm. Okay, germ is where the microgreen germinates, okay, and the endosperm is there and the fiber part is there. All of them are grinded or blended together, and that is your atta. So if you add that, what happens? These fiber particles, right, they are like small tiny pieces of blade, okay, that is going to cut down the strands of gluten formed, okay. So in a sponge, if you just try and cut the or in a network, if you try and cut the network, okay, what happens? It no longer can hold, the sponge can no longer hold water. Similarly, in atta, if you add atta, what will happen is, because of the bran particles, it will not let the cake batter to race, and your final product is going to be dense and chewy. There will be a very significant difference in the texture. That's why. Yeah, essence is artificial and synthetic, and extract is from the real stuff. That's the difference. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so our eggless cake is out. I'm just going to leave it here. Thank you. I can bake it little bit longer if I want the caramelization on top, but I've taken it out. It is perfectly fine for me because it's going to go inside only, not a problem. So the skewer inserted inside has come out clean. Okay, it has started to brown, but it's done. The sponge is done. Okay, and you can see beautifully flat and no domes, no cracks, nothing. Okay, so the difference between all-purpose flour and cake flour is all-purpose flour is just maida and cake flour is maida plus salt plus a little bit of corn flour as well. So that is cake flour. Self-raising flour has also baking powder added into it. Okay, you can skip the lemon zest if you want. Baking time was so quick than mentioned, correct. It's because you're baking in 2 tins, okay. So always make sure thin batters always cook faster. Remember, thick batters will take longer. Okay guys, I think we are done. Other questions I'll take it up later because we have to be on track also. See, I wish, can I have the front view, Akash? Okay, so is it in the front view? Okay, so I wish I could go on and explain more, explain everything in more detail, but since we have a time restriction, I would love to see you guys in one of my courses where it will be like more in detail and more discussions in more depth, but for now we'll stick to something that is essential and basic and pertaining to today's syllabus. Okay, so this is done. I'm going to give it to people. Okay guys, so now we are going to go further. Let's do the chocolate hazelnut cake. So I'm going to take out all the recipe measured. Vivek, can I have this melted? Okay, so let me take out all the ingredients. My flour and salt, nut powder, leavening agent, and then I have honey, lemon juice, this also needs to be melted, butter melted. Okay, so this we are going to bake it in a loaf pan, okay? Great. So now I have all the ingredients ready. So is everything in view? Okay, so just turn to the hazelnut cake recipe. We're going to do this hazelnut cake recipe, chocolate hazelnut cake. Okay. So here I have again in the recipe I have segregated everything as dry ingredients and wet ingredients. So this is going to be a mixing method. Thank you. For this I am going to use a half a kilo loaf pan. You can use paper bake tables also, or you can bake this in a normal regular square tin also. Okay, it can be baked as anything. I'm going to bake it as a loaf cake. Okay. So let's start by sieving the dry ingredients. So I have the flour, then I have the leavening agents, baking powder, and then salt I have added. Then I have the cocoa powder. So cocoa powder, try to use a good quality cocoa powder such as Calibo or Van Houten. So see, there are lots of lumps with cocoa powder especially. Alright. So once I've sieved the dry ingredients, then I'm going to add the nut powder, the hazelnut powder. If you don't want to use hazelnut, you can also use almond powder, cashew nut powder, whatever other nut meals you have, you can add. Okay, I've added hazelnut meal and I have mixed it together. Okay, we'll keep this aside. Then in another bowl, I'm going to add all the wet ingredients. So I'll start with melted butter. Start with melted butter. Then I'm going to add the cream. So this, the texture of this cake is going to be a bit, little bit like a dense texture, okay, rich kind of a texture, not very light. Okay, and then I'm adding the yogurt. Okay, now I'm going to just whisk the yogurt, milk, the cream and the butter together. So I'm doing this to remove the lumpy texture of the yogurt. Okay, this is done. Now I'm going to be adding the lemon juice and some honey. Okay, once that is mixed together, I am going to add the brown sugar. So again, the brown sugar needs to be mixed in. You can also use jaggery powder if you want. But there are some lumps which I am trying to break apart. So, see, as you may have noticed, when I added the sugar, this wet ingredients became more loose and more runny, right? So, this makes it easier for us to fold in the dry ingredients. If you add the sugar with the flour and the other dry ingredients, then the batter becomes really tight to fold. So, that's the reason sugar always never comes in it never comes with the dry ingredients. It should never be sifted or it shouldn't be added to the dry ingredients. It always needs to go along with the fat, either butter or oil or whatever liquid ingredients you use. You got to mix the sugar with the liquid ingredients in order for it to dissolve completely. So you can use jaggery also if you want, and for this cake you can also use whole wheat if you want, because anyway the cake texture is going to be a little dense only. So make it nice and rich, and if you want to make it a little more healthy or whatever, I don't believe in that, but you can add that and it will be just fine. Okay, so now I am going to add all the dry ingredients at once. Here is where you should not over mix. So I am just going to use my whisk just going to gently bring it together, bring the batter together. Takes less than 10-15 seconds to bring it together into a batter. And some chocolate I want, melted chocolate. Yeah, I will add the carrots. Okay, I'm just going to scrape off. No, Vivek. Vivek? Okay. I gave you a cup of chocolate to be melted, no? Oh, okay. No problem. Fine, I'm just going to add the melted chocolate at the very end. So to this, I'm also going to add some carrots, okay? So these chocolate chips, I've just coated it with a little bit of flour, okay? This is important because you don't want the carrots to sink all the way to the bottom. So just about quarter spoon of flour, and then we mix it. Just coat the chips, chocolate chips or whatever, and then I'm also adding some hazelnut, chopped hazelnuts. So this batter going to be a little bit tight. And we have some melted chocolate also to be added at the very end. Actually, I forgot to add that in the wet ingredients. Let me do that finally. Okay. So I'm adding the melted chocolate also. Thank you. Okay, great. This is how the batter looks. Okay, so now I'm going to put it in so this also I have buttered it and I have added a parchment paper below. Let me spread it out, make sure it goes to all the corners. So this slice is going to be like loaded with chocolate and nuts and everything. And it'll be a bit dense, rich and dense. Okay, so since this batter is going to be tight, just going to tap it twice and this is going to go into the oven. Okay, so this might take around 25 minutes to 30 minutes. Same skewer test, insert it all the way in the middle and see if it comes out clean and then take it out. Okay, so any questions till now? I'll take some questions now. Okay. So the size of the loaf pan is mentioned in your booklet, guys. It's 6 by 3 or 7 by 3, I'm not sure. Yeah, 7 by 3. Brown sugar brand, I'm using this brand called Pirot. But you can use anything. Mawana is also fine. Okay. Can I use cacao powder instead of a good brand? Yes, you can use cacao powder also. Pricing of these cakes are not going to be covered in this session, but I do have a free YouTube video how you can price all of your products. You can go have a look at that video in detail, and you'll have a clear idea of how to approach the entire process. But if you take up any of my classes, paid classes, on my website, you get the pricing sheet free with which you can do the pricing of all of your products. You can just grind any nuts to make it powder, and yes, you can roast the nuts also to make it. Why here you used melted butter, not softened butter? So basically this was initially an oil based recipe, but I didn't want to use oil, so I just used melted butter instead. Even if you soften the butter and then cream the butter and the sugar and then add the yogurt and the milk, will be perfectly fine. Okay, but for this recipe just mixing works, because it's a very dense, we don't need to accumulate too much air into it. Okay, that's why we're using a mixing method, and we're using melted butter also. Any brown sugar is fine. It can be dark brown sugar, it can be light brown sugar. Is it healthy to heat honey? I'm not very sure of that. I'm sorry. Same quantity. If you're using jaggery powder, it will be the same quantity as brown sugar. Can we dissolve sugar in melted butter and use it to avoid lumps? Yes, you can do that. Why didn't you apply the cut and fold method in this recipe? Basically, you just need to bring it together. So I thought for more minimal contact, I just added everything at once and I just brought everything together. Okay, even with the whisk, if you see, I didn't use it too much. I just used it to mix it together and then took it off and then used my spatula to do the final folding. Yeah, there is no beater work in this recipe, that's right. The melted chocolate I am using is Calabo. You can use any brand of your choice. Yes, you can use white sugar instead of brown sugar. You can use any kind of cocoa powder, no problem. You need to preheat every recipe requires preheating the oven. There is no recipe that I know that doesn't require a preheating of oven. Yes, you can use oil instead of butter. Eggs I haven't used, but you can try and let me know. Hazelnut powder was just normal hazelnut, toasted a little bit and then powdered. Any brand of honey is fine. See, these are things that are not very significant, the brands of the stuff and the brand of everything. As long as you think it's a good quality ingredient, just go ahead and use it. I think I missed the comments flow. 1 minute. Okay. How much crushed hazelnuts you added to the batter? You can just use a handful of hazelnuts. There's no quantity. You can just go as per your wish. Degrees remain the same. The temperature of the oven would be 160 to 170. Thank you, Basha. The chocolate chips can be compound or must it be pure chocolate? If you use pure chocolate, they will remain nice and melty when you take it out. Compounds will become very hard. They will not melt very easily. So I don't use compound at all. If you want to make it with egg, then replace yogurt. Yes, perfect. That works. I'll come to the whipping cream later. Can I use the same recipe to make a vanilla loaf? Yes, the vanilla recipe you can use to make a vanilla loaf. Absolutely. In this recipe, whether it's melted butter or soft butter, doesn't make any difference because we are going to add like a lot of heavy things like melted chocolate and yogurt, the cream and all that. So it's going to make it dense anyway. So it doesn't matter. Role of fresh cream is to make it fat, right? So we want a more fudgy texture. That's why we're adding more fat. What's the difference between the brown sugar you've used and the crystal brown sugar? There will be a slight difference in flavor, I feel, but any brown sugar is okay for this recipe. Preheating time will always be 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, whatever your oven takes to reach the temperature. Why do we use honey? Honey adds a different flavor to this cake. That's why. You can use maple syrup also instead of honey, that's also fine. Or if you want, you can use date syrup also. Same quantity, everything in same quantity. The nuts that I added were toasted, yes. You can use demerara sugar also. So just toast the hazelnuts on a tray, aluminium tray in the oven at 180 for just 10 minutes. That's good. My oven is already running, so I haven't preheated. But if you're doing it from scratch, then you need to preheat your oven. Okay, so someone's asking 3 grams of baking powder in spoons measurement. 3 grams is going to be 3/4 teaspoon. Note that. Okay, 3/4 teaspoon is 3 grams of baking powder. I always use aluminium pans. I completely avoid the black tray and the black tins. I don't like them. Aluminium is good. Size of round pan, you can use a 6-inch or a 7-inch. You can alternate the cream with milk, yes. If there are no strawberries, you can use cherry. Sandhya, I've already covered it. So let's stick to the questions regarding this section, please. Guys, no alternatives for cream. Please use cream only. Amul cream is very easy to get. So why do you need an alternative for this? Why do you want to add egg in this recipe? Tell me. Okay, I think we are at the end of the questions. Just one last scan through. I'll come with the whipping cream percentages later, okay? Yes, I am having water. Thank you, guys. Okay, I think we are at the end of the questions. I will show you how to insert the jelly in the loaf cake. Okay, in the loaf tin, if you had seen, there was this rod that goes through in the center. So you got to bake the cake with the rod on, and then once the cake is baked out, you take the rod out, and then there will be a cylindrical space left for you to use the piping bag and then fill whatever filling you want to use. That's how you use the loaf pan with the insert inside. Please explain the difference between sponge cake and tea time cake. So tea time cake is mostly butter based and quite dense and rich basically, and sponge cake is more of a light texture. Okay, more light and airy texture. Am I audible? Okay. Yeah. So I have used light brown sugar. I am using Unox convection oven. Alekia, I am using an Unox convection oven. Okay, so we finished this, right? Yeah, all right, fine. So I'm going to start, guys. Yes, let's move on to the next section. Let's do the ganache, chocolate ganache, and let's do the caramelized nuts, and then finish this live. Okay, we'll finish this live after doing the chocolate ganache and the caramelized nuts, and then start a new live again for the icing part. Is that okay, Akash? So let's do the chocolate ganache and the caramelized nuts. Yeah, all the questions are answered. Okay, let's do the chocolate ganache now. Done? For the previous recipe, just fresh cream. Yeah. Okay. Am I up and running? Okay, great. So let's move to the next recipe, chocolate ganache. Okay. I'm going to be applying chocolate ganache on top of the loaf. The purpose is obviously it's nice and creamy and luscious, but I also want to stick my caramelized nuts on top of the loaf. Okay. So that's why I'm making the chocolate ganache. So basically chocolate ganache is a emulsion of chocolate and cream. Okay, so I'm just going to add all the cream, bring it to a quick boil or a steaming temperature. Not boil, I'm going to bring it to a slightly steamy temperature, okay, around 70-80 degrees. And then I'm going to take it off the stove and add the callets and mix it together. That's it. So here, two things you got to make sure, okay. One is don't overheat your cream. If you're melting the chocolate, some people what they do, they melt the chocolate also, they gently heat the cream and then they mix it, okay. Don't overheat the chocolate also, don't overheat the cream also. Just let them be around 70 degrees or so and then combine them. So then if you overheat, what happens? The cocoa butter from these callets will separate out. So we don't want that to happen. Yeah, so it's already, the cream is already steaming. So I switch it off and I add the calories. Okay. Just take it off the stove. We don't want to be heating the chocolate on the stove. Okay. So with the residual heat, I'm just going to mix it. Just use your spatula. Press the calories to the base and the sides of your vessel or the bowl in order to make it melt. Okay, and that's it. So this is as simple as it can get. So then we will let this cool down completely and we will use it on top of the loaf when it's ready. Okay. So this is our ganache. Nice, shiny, glossy. If you overheat it, you will see that the gloss is lost and it looks split or curdled. Okay. Right. I'll put this aside. Vivek, I need a big saucepan. Need a big saucepan. Caramelized nuts. Okay, so let's move to the caramelized nuts part. Okay, so I have a tray with the silpat, or you can even use parchment. Anything is fine. And take out your mixed nuts. I have some mixed nuts here. I have almonds, hazelnuts and cashew nuts. And the sugar that needs to be caramelized. Okay, the sugar and a little pinch of salt. So now what we do, we are going to add we are making a dry caramel, okay. So in a dry caramel, we have to use the sugar in small additions. So just add the sugar, let it caramelize first. So when you're handling caramel, try to use any wooden spatula like this, okay. Wooden or something which is heat proof. Unlike the silicone spatula, try to use these ones. So I'll wait for this to. And the nuts that I'm using, they're slightly toasted. You can you bring it here? Yeah. Okay, so in the dry caramel method, stay with your caramel, don't move anywhere. Okay, salt we are going to use just to cut down the sweetness of the caramel, okay. It's like you add sea salt to your brownie, on top. So a little bit of salt works well. Helps with the taste. So just a small sprinkle of salt only, okay. So now you can see it's slowly starting to melt. Control your heat, okay. Yeah, now it's all melted. Can you see it's all melted? So I'm not stirring also too much. I add the remaining sugar and I let the previous caramel heat transfer to the new sugar. So I'm just pushing it inside, not stirring too much, just pushing the caramel inside. So if you stir too much, what will happen is it can initiate crystallization, okay. So that's why during caramelization process they ask you not to stir too much. So just gentle stirring here and there and trying to break the lumps is fine, but not too much. Okay, now it's starting to get like really orange. Okay, now I'm going to add these nuts. Going to make them coat in the caramel nicely, and I'm going to cook it a little bit further. So basically I want the caramel to toast the nuts also. Okay, now I'm going to take it off the stove and put it on the silpat. Switch it off, put it on the silpat, and I'm going to try to just separate them as much as I can. Okay, and I'll let this cool down completely. And then we can use this as garnish on top of the loaf. Okay. I'll sprinkle some salt now. Okay, now we will put this under a fan to let this cool down completely, and then we'll come back to this. Yes, you can put the nuts and then pour the caramel over it also, but you can't coat the entire nuts with the caramel then in that case. Okay. Ganache, shelf life of ganache outside, couple of days in room temperature, in the fridge 5 to 7 days. If the chocolate doesn't completely mix with the heat of the cream, what is the best way to make sure it's smooth? So you can put it in a microwavable container like a glass or a plastic, and then you can just microwave it in bursts of 10 seconds and then mix it nicely. Okay. Can we bake this in the air fryer? I'm not sure. I haven't tried. Should work. Ideally should work. Okay. Any other questions regarding ganache? Okay, the percentage of chocolate used for ganache, I'm using 55%. If cocoa butter separates, what do you do? So if cocoa butter separates, what I generally do is I use the stick blender. The emulsion blender, I emulsify the ganache and it will come together. Okay. Can I get that stick blender? If just ask them, no? I'll just show them. Yeah, so this is the stick blender I use. This helps to emulsify everything very well. Caramel sauce, ganache, cremo, whatever it is, it'll help. You can use any kind of fine sugar. As long as the granules are fine, you can use any kind of sugar. Cream means Amul cream, 25%, yes. How to melt chocolate without microwave? At the moment, you can even just leave it outside, it will melt on its own because of the heat. But you can use a double boiler. Actually, one of my students were participating in no fire cooking competition, and she wanted to use chocolate very badly. So what she did, she just put it in a bowl and left it outside the competition room. It melted by the time she wanted it. This actually happened. So she made the ganache without using heat. Okay. Yes, I will come to Kolkata soon. Thank you for the invite. Yes, this is Bamix. If the ganache splits, you can use the blender to blend it together. That's what I just explained. You store your chocolates in a cool, dark cupboard. Just keep it cling wrapped or wrapped completely. Okay, I think I have Bamix, B-A-M-I-X, Bamix. You can use Murphy, Richard, Phillips, anything is fine, okay? The oven I suggest, please go through the other document I have uploaded in your files section. I have talked in detail about the ovens I have and what I recommend. Okay, fine. Now let's move on to the next section, which is the icing of the cake, okay? I'll need a few things from these guys. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to get all the things required. Yeah. So I have my icing tools. Okay, so I'm actually going to prepare my, is the sugar is there a little bit? Yeah, castor sugar. So I am preparing my soaking syrup, okay? So 2 parts water, 1 part sugar. Around 100 grams of water this is, so I'll be adding 50 grams of sugar, okay? So I'm just going to stir it and that's my soaking syrup, simple and easy. I need the sponges also from the fridge. Sponges in the fridge, yeah, the silver color fridge. Okay, so I have a board here, and to stick the board to the turntable, I'm just going to fold it in half, this tissue, fold it in quarter, add little water, okay, just moisten this and then add your cake board on top, or you can use a double side tape, anything is fine. So I'm going to bring the cakes from the fridge. They have cooled down. So I always like to store my cakes like this. Put it on a base and then cling wrap it so that it doesn't lose the shape of it. So we need tropolite remain and one big bowl and the beater for this. Pavitra, are the inserts frozen?
Yeah.
It's frozen, no? Okay. Just release the cake from the base board like this with your offset palette knife. Okay, so now I'm going to add some tropolite. She's bringing it. I've thawed and kept it in the smaller fridge. Yes. So I'm going to be using this non-dairy whipping cream. Okay, I'm using this non-dairy whipping cream. This is the only, this is the only brand of non-dairy whipping cream I really like. Others are all like very average. So this, if I have to really use a non-dairy cream, I will use this. The dairy whipping cream I will not suggest for icing your cakes, that too in this heat. So that's why I'm using a non-dairy whipping cream. Okay. So this comes frozen. So when you buy it from the shops, it'll be frozen. Okay. So what you need to do, put it in the fridge overnight so that it becomes liquid totally. So I'm going to pour this whipping cream. Okay, I'm going to pour this whipping cream to the bowl. Okay, I'm adding somewhere around 400 to 500 grams of whipping cream. Okay. If you want, you can take a little bit more. Yeah, since it's over 1 kilo. So we will start beating this at slow speed. Okay. Yeah, you can come here. So it's totally liquid like this now. Let's start beating it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you the consistency of the cream now. Okay, so it's very like softly whipped. Okay, so it's just started thickening, right? So my tip here would be, if you're going to use the whipping cream as a filling and frosting, don't whip the entire cream and keep it. Okay, what will happen if you entirely whip everything to stiff peaks and keep? After like around 10 minutes, the cream will lose its texture. Okay, once the cream loses its texture, you cannot beat it and bring it back to stiff peaks. So what I like to do is, I'll take a little bit out from this, put it on in another bowl, and I will keep it in the fridge. So when I require more cream for the frosting part, then I will take it from the fridge and then I will whip it again. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, a bit more, yeah. So I'm going to save this for the frosting part. The remaining, I will whip it up to stiff peaks. Okay, so it's come to stiff peaks now. Okay, see, it's coming to stiff peaks. Yeah, front view if you can. So don't over whip the cream also. It has to be still shiny and stiff at the same time. Okay, so we will keep it aside, and please remember that I am working still in a AC room only. So I am going to show you the egg vanilla cake. The egg based vanilla cake is here, and I want to remove the dome. Okay, so generally when I want to ice the cake, I do it at least a night prior, the cake, and then I wrap it and keep it in the fridge, and the next morning I will use it for icing. Okay, so now I'll show you how to remove the dome of this and then slice it into two. Okay, just the correct method. So here first with my serrated knife, I'm going to hold it parallelly to the cake board. Okay, so I'm going to first mark it. So this serrated knife is meant to be used like, you know, like a saw, front and back, front and back, front and back, like this. Okay, so first I'm going to mark it like that, and then now I step back to see if it is correctly marked. Okay, now what I'm going to do, this fast process of slicing, I'm going to do it in slow motion for you. So I kept it an inch inside. Okay, now turn it. Bring the knife to and fro, an inch inside, turn it. Inch inside, turn it. Inch inside, turn it. So since it's a butter cake, it has a little resistance because it was in the fridge, which is necessary for you. Otherwise, it'll all, you know, too many crumbs will come out. Then turn. That's okay, I'll do it. Do it, do it, do it. And then finally, you will come out to the other side. Okay. Now, I want to. So this was the sponge baked yesterday. Okay, now I am going to slice it. So again same thing, mark it. And then again an inch inside, turn. An inch inside, turn. An inch inside, turn. So your left hand needs to keep turning and the right hand remains in the same place. And then it's come out easily on the other side. So this is also done. So now we'll try to clean up and start the layering process. Okay, and even in the eggless sponge, I just want to remove the top portion alone. So just the skin part, let me remove. Now if I remove the thin skin part, if I apply soaking syrup, it will go into it easily. That's the reason I am removing it. Okay, this is done. And removing the skin of this one also. Okay, so let's remove all the crumbs. Basha, will you do the layering? Okay. So we have the board here kept on a piece of wet cloth, or you can use a double side tape to stick it. So whenever you ice the cakes, we keep cleaning the table. Clean the table, clean the table. It should be free from crumbs. So then you have a clarity of what needs to be done. Okay, messy work space or work table will not help much. Okay, so this is done. Now let's start with the first step. Okay, we are going to add, see, if you're going to send this to somewhere, okay, in a car or in a bike, you need to add a blob of ganache. Okay, you need to add a blob of ganache for the first layer of cake to stick on the cake board so that it doesn't slide from here to there. But today we are not going to send it anywhere. So we are just going to start, just use this whipped cream only. Okay, and note that in the whipped cream I have not added any sugar, I have not added any flavoring. But if you want, you can add sugar, but I like the mild taste of the non-dairy whipped cream. I don't want to add any more sugar to it. Yes. Okay, that's it. Just a little blob for it to stick it, and then I'm going to gently slide it. Okay, press it down a little bit, and then we will apply the soaking syrup. So the water and the sugar, I just stir it and the sugar will melt. That's it. No need to heat it also. If you want, you can add lemon zest or orange zest to the soaking syrup. Okay, so just add, since it's a butter cake, I always like to soak my cake layers or sponges. So that it remains moist even in the fridge, or even after one day, if people want to cut it and then leave it, keep it in the fridge and then eat it later tomorrow, then also it should be, a little moist. Okay, perfect. Now can we have the insert in the fridge? The first one would be the mango. Yeah, the mango. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to create a dam. So we are just going to pipe the cream, yeah, and a little bit of cream in the center. This will be less thinner than the dam. Okay, so just do that and then try to spread it. Thank you so much. 6 inch ring ka. Either 6 inch ring. Yeah. Okay, so our mango insert is out. It's completely frozen. Are you guys able to see it? Can they see it, Akash? Okay. So this mango insert is out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the cling wrap. Remove the cling wrap. Okay, it looks so beautiful with all the mango pieces. What I'm going to do, put the ring upside down and I'm going to just push it. That's it. It's out super easily, and we're just going to, this is how it looks. Okay, so I'm going to place it like that. Okay, can you see, can you turn to the front camera once, Akash? Okay, so there's a thin layer of cream and the mango. So we'll do one dam outside this one also. So using the cream, we are going to cover up or fence the mango jelly, mango compote. Right, so now we will add the next layer. I will add this one, or this one, you can use this one if you want. Yeah, and then we'll add the next layer of sponge. Yes. Okay, make sure it's straight. As you keep building the layers, make sure it's straight. And then we will soak this sponge also. Should I? That's okay, it's fine. Okay, so we'll soak the second layer of sponge. Okay, it's nice and soaked now. So we'll do the dam part again. We'll bring the strawberry one also. Pipe a thick dam and little bit of cream in the center. So this is our strawberry cremo insert. Again, I'm going to remove the cling wrap from all the sides. Put it upside down. Peel the cling wrap carefully, slowly. Okay, and I'm going to push the insert. And it's come out easily. So then I'm going to add this to the center. Okay, then we'll build the dam a little bit higher to cover the cremo. Okay, so now we'll use this sponge to finish off. Okay, so now we will step back to see if it's all straight and everything. Okay, now that is done, we'll just we'll scrape the sides a little bit and then we'll do the soaking of the cake on top, the top layer. So we are using a steel scraper here with sharp edges and straight sides. Okay, right. So we are going to place the corner right at the corner of the cake and then make sure the scraper is touching the cake and then run it slowly. Make sure the sides are all smudged nicely. Can we show this view? Okay. Yeah. This is how it looks now. So we are going to soak the sponge on top. So do we have enough whipped cream, or we have to? We have to. Yeah, we'll bring the whipped cream. So at this stage, what you can do is to put the entire cake in the freezer. Okay, put it in the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes so that everything sets. Okay, and then bring it back and do the coating on the top and the sides. But are we going to continue? We'll continue. Okay, because everything is. The sponge was cold because we are using the sponge that we baked yesterday and the inserts are cold. So we are going to continue doing it, okay? But if you are a beginner, I would suggest you to put this at this stage in the freezer for some time and then take it out and do it. Great, we are going to see we had some softly whipped cream, no? In the freezer, sorry, in the fridge. I am going to whip it once again to stiff peaks. Yeah, put it in the center. So if there are any questions, I can actually take the questions now. Yeah. You can leave it here. Okay, so I'm going to answer a few questions. How much of soaking syrup per cake? It totally depends on each baker's preferences or each client's preferences. Some people don't like it soaked much. Some people like it really like nice and moist. So it really depends. So if the sponge turns out crumbly, that then the recipe, something is wrong with the recipe then. I'm using the sponges I made last night because I like the sponges to be nice and rested and cold when I'm going to ice it, okay? So I'm working in AC, so the cream is not going to melt. You cannot, obviously you cannot work in a normal room temperature and expect your cream to hold up or even buttercream to hold up. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we are going to do the top part first, okay? So instead of, using the spatula and taking the cream and putting a dollop on top and then using the offset palette knife, I prefer using a piping bag to do everything. Time and speed of beating, just go by visual cues. Please don't be obsessed with time or the speed of the beater or the speed of the machine. None of that matters. As long as your cream has come to soft peak consistency, medium stiff peak consistency, that's all you need. So go by how it looks rather than the time and the speed. Anyway, even if I tell you the time and speed, by the time you practice, you will forget it. So don't remove unwanted details. Okay, so we have piped the cream on top, okay. Now what we are going to do is use the offset palette knife. See, you can see the offset palette knife is going left and right, okay. It's not touching the cake. It should not touch the cake. First of all, add a fat amount of cream on top. Secondly, use the offset palette knife and do not touch the cake. You're only going to touch the cream part. Okay, then hold it in the center like this. With a gentle pressure, you're going to flatten and smoothen it out. I know it looks easy, but it comes by practice. Keep practicing, yes. And we are going to pipe the sides. We'll change the view now. So we are going to hold the piping bag to 90 degrees. And slowly with equal pressure without any gaps, we are going to pipe it. Pipe the cream onto the sides of the cake. You can reduce the ISO. Yeah, now it's perfect. Are any polls pending? Okay, so we refilled the piping bag again. One bubble is there now. So, okay. So there is a, yeah, okay. So we are going to just continue piping more cream by the side. Okay, and a little bit here also. So make sure every part of the cake is covered, okay. So I prefer this instead of doing this method. This method, for beginners, this would be easy, okay. So we have filled it. Now we are going to use a scraper, steel scraper, okay. Anything like this works. A steel scraper with nice sharp edge and nice straight sides. Yes, and keep cleaning your scraper. Every time you need to clean the scraper, okay. So hold it very gently to the side of the cake. Very gently, don't push it inside the cake, okay. Very gently, and then with your left hand, you rotate the turntable. Right hand remains in the same place. Just touch and remain in the same place. Scrape it out. ऊपर थोड़ा ज़्यादा लेना है. Okay. So now can you, yeah, scrape it out. Now just make sure, step back to see which part of your cake needs more scraping. I can see that top part has a little more cream compared to the bottom part. Okay, so you need to tilt the scraper a little bit so that you take more from the top part and less from the bottom part. Yeah, so in the last scrape, we are taking as much as we can from the top part, slowly, slowly, and this looks perfect. Yeah. So now what we do, we'll clean up the board. I'm going to give you a tissue to just clean up. Wait, don't get in water a bit. So use a little wet tissue and we'll clean up the sides of the board. Okay, please understand that this entire process comes by practice. Okay, minimum of a few 2-3 months of practice you will get there. Don't expect to achieve these results immediately, but just grasp the techniques and try to implement it every time you practice it. Someone's asking, if I take 400 grams of whipping cream, what will be the yield of cream once beaten till stiff peaks? It will be exact same amount. Okay, it will be exact 400 grams only. There won't be any change in measurements. This eggless recipe will give you two thin 7-inch layers. Okay. So tropolite, what is it made of? Please let me know. Is it oil based or coconut? So basically it is soy based, soy milk based. For whipping cream brands, I suggest Rich Wilbur Farms or Ellen Wire. Okay, now let's do the top portion. Okay, so 1 second. So we have these extra frosting on top, right? So we are going to scrape it. Okay, using a straight palette knife. Yeah, using a straight palette knife. Come from outside at a little angle all the way inside and swiftly remove it. Slowly all the way in, remove it swiftly. Okay, make sure it's on the surface. Scrape it. So go little by little to remove the cream on top. Yes. So the serrated knife brand I am using is Victorinox. Chemistry was never my favorite subject. Someone is asking, is chemistry your favorite subject? Because I explained nice. Chemistry wasn't my favorite subject. But I like the way things work in baking. So, can we use extra whipped cream, fat based? Will it be stable in tropical climate? No, I don't suggest it. You can use juice also to soak your cakes. Yes, perfectly fine. Okay, so can we have this view? So this is finished for wrapping our chocolate collar. We are going to do the chocolate collar next. Okay. So this I am going to put it in the freezer for just about 5-10 minutes until the chocolate collar is done. Okay. So I'm going to leave this there. Pavi? Yeah, okay. This one freezer la vechirunga. Straight ah vechirunga. Okay, so we're going to just set up for the chocolate collar. 1 minute. Pavitra, we need the cake. She left. Can you just call her? I want to check the height of the cake so I know what height of the chocolate collar I have to make. Okay. Okay, this much is good. Okay. Fine. So for the chocolate collar, compound melt panna Basha. See, I think it needs to be put up a little bit. Okay, so for the chocolate collar, what we are going to do is I have two A4 acetate sheets like this. Two A4 acetate sheets stuck in the middle here. Stuck it in the middle like this. Two A4 sheets are here like this. Okay, got it? Clear? So I'm going to put it on the table and I'm going to use the blade. I measured how tall the cake was. Now I'm going to cut out. So it was approximately so much. So I'm just going to cut out the acetate sheet for the collar. Okay, I have taken this part out which I don't want, and now I have a thin sheet of acetate which I can wrap around the cake. Okay, this is ready now. Now I'm going to clean my station. And I'm going to melt some white compound. So things, when you're working with chocolate, you got to keep everything ready. So I have a scraper like this to scrape out the remaining chocolate. And I have the acetate sheet ready. And then I have some offset palette knife ready. A spatula to scoop out the chocolate. And a blade, and I'll need a tape. So I'm looking for a tape. Yeah, this is a transparent tape. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to pour the white compound here. Use the offset palette knife to spread it out really thin. Okay, and then we are going to take out the acetate sheet and then we are going to wrap it around the cake we just iced. And then once it's wrapped around, I'm going to use the tape. I'm going to use the tape to stick it together. And yeah, I'll be needing a scissor also. Is there a scissor? Yeah, there's a scissor here. I'll be needing a scissor. Okay, so everything that I need is ready. So I prefer using a collar in case you're not, practiced with icing with straight sides and all that. This is a very, very effective way to do finishing on the cake without much efforts. So it'll give you a nice finishing without much effort. So until you finish practicing and you have nice practice on the icing, you can use this method. I'll do this. Okay, so I have some white compound melted. Make sure there are no lumps. How much was this? Approx 200 grams. Okay, so I'm just going to pour it on top. So I'm going to use my offset. I'm going to use another one, I broke one. Okay, use the offset, and when you're going this side, incline it on this side a little bit, okay, to push the chocolate. And when you're going this side, push it, incline it this way. So basically we are working in a AC room, okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to make the chocolate crystallize by using temperature and agitation. So I'm just running my palette knife from this side to this side, and while I do that, what I'm doing, I'm forcing the crystals to set. Keep scraping it. So at one point you will find all these lumps. Just keep taking it over from one side to the other. Apply more pressure to remove the lumps. Cake எடுத்துட்டு வரலாம் நினைக்கிறேன். Okay, now it's completely solidified. Okay. Now I just want to figure out where the chocolate is. So I'm going to scrape the excess from this side. Okay, so I found the starting point. So I'm just going to peel it off. Keep it here, okay? Remaining chocolate, quickly scrape. So you will only actually require very, very less amount of chocolate for the collar. Okay, clean up this entire space. So put this strip on, and using the blade, I'm just going to make the sides a bit sharp. Since I removed the strip out of the chocolate, it's going to have a little jagged edges. So I'm just going to run the blade, sharp blade, on the strip, just to give it a really nice sharp finish. Okay, this thin chocolates are all gone. And then once on the other side also. Okay, now let's bring the cake. Okay, so we're going to cover. We'll start from this side. It's actually come out. It's fitting perfectly actually. There's a little gap here. Just try to. Okay, so this covers it. Just going to remove all the excess. Wipe off excess cream from the bottom. Okay, so now we need to let the cream completely set. Okay, need to let the cream and the chocolate on top of it completely set. So this is going back into the freezer for some time, and then we will be able to peel the acetate sheet off the cake. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll take some questions and yeah. So Bashu, we need to get the chocolate loaf which is there in the trolley, and some ganache and the caramelized nuts also. Okay, so just take a few questions. Okay, I'm just scrolling all the way up. Okay. So we need 3 layers of sponge, but the given recipe, I can't go back to that. So we need 3 layers of sponge, but the given recipe gives 2 layers, so we need to make 1.5 recipe. Yes, perfectly right. You got it. What will be the weight of this cake once done completely? It should be around 1.5 kilos. One platter, if it's there, will be really nice. Okay, so should we cut? You can do 1.5 times and then cut it into 3 layers. Can we do the icing with white chocolate ganache? Yes, absolutely you can. Should we do the process of keeping it in the freezer for all the normal cakes or only while using cremo filling? In general, I tend to keep the cakes in the freezer so that it quickly sets and then I'll be able to work on it. Ma'am, if we don't have so many tins, can we use ring molds lined with cling wrap to bake? Use the ring molds but use aluminium foil, not cling wraps, okay? After scraping the cream, what is the duration to keep the cake in the fridge? So I just kept it in the freezer for 5-10 minutes for it to set before I made the collar. Won't the fruit compote melt into the cake and make it wet? How to judge the amount of compote per cake? The fruit compote is set using a setting agent like agar agar, so it is going to remain set. It's not going to melt into the cake, okay? So the cream was not re-whipped, it was only whipped until soft peaks, so we just took it and then whipped it to stiff peaks for the final icing. You cannot replace honey with white sugar. Kavita, you cannot replace honey with white sugar in all the recipes, okay? So if you have to do your, if you want to do our recipe that we did in class, do 1.5 times and then divide it into 3 layers. Perfect. This is good. You can put it in a piping bag and you can give it to me. Any small star nozzle is fine. I'll just do this and then put the caramelized nuts. Okay. Will there be any change in texture of compote or cremo when in room temperature or while during transport as it was taken out? So the jelly will thaw out, or the compote or the jelly or the cremo will thaw out and will become like a soft scoopable consistency basically. Egg base layer was also cut into 2 layers only. Okay. If you get air bubbles while scraping, what that means is the cream has been slightly on the over whipped side. So the remaining whatever you have left over, you can add little unwhipped cream and then you can mix it and bring it back to consistency. Any tip if you're working in non-AC room, I highly don't recommend working with cream, especially in a non-AC room. The temperature is crazy outside and obviously anything would melt. Even you would be sweating and melting in the heat. So why will your cakes not melt? So I don't recommend that at all. Pastry work is meant to be done in a cool room. Any tip for whipped cream stability in summer? See, there is no way to stabilize something when the heat is so much. So try to maintain the temperature of your working and try to send it in AC car. This is good. This is good. Is crumb coat important? Actually not very important. We sometimes skip and do the final coat also. How do we make creme chantilly with tropolite? We just made creme chantilly only with tropolite. Okay. There is a soft peak already in the bowl and you added leftover cream for beating. As the soft peak whipped cream loses consistency after beating again. I did not understand that question, so please reframe it and I will answer. Can we use vegetable oil based non-dairy cream? I don't suggest. I do not suggest any non-dairy cream. But the only non-dairy cream I like is the Tropolite Premium. The sheet is called a acetate sheet or OHP sheet. Yes, I have stuck two sheets together. Yes. You can use parchment also instead of acetate sheet, but you won't get the shine on the chocolate. It'll be matte. It'll be a matte finish. How long will this hold up in room temperature? Not very long, because room temperature is pretty hot right now. So it needs to be refrigerated all times. Or in the AC room at the max. Yield weight will be almost 1.5 kilos, guys. The acetate sheets has been stuck together to make it this big. What other chocolates can we use other than Calitz? You can use Van Houten bars. Those are also very good. You can use that. Brand of white chocolate. I've used Mode white chocolate. White compound, sorry. The specific reason for using compound is for beginners to easily pick up and use the technique. However, I would usually generally use only Corcho chocolate. I will temper it and use. But if I say tempered chocolate, then people will ask me how to temper the chocolate. And for that, we'll need to have another session. That is the reason I used compound. Okay. Won't the chocolate collar be stiff when we cut the cake? I will show you the thickness of the collar I made. It's going to be really, really thin. Okay, it's super thin. So, okay, white chocolate collar is compound. Okay. Okay, I lost the comments. My team is very nice. Yes, they are very nice. Thank you. Okay. I lost the comments. What's the temperature room AC temperature you're working at? This AC is actually running at 16, but room temperature will be around 24 or so, because you know we have all these lights and people in and out, coming in and out. So 24, 25 degrees, I would say. Did you pour hot white chocolate on the top of OHP sheet? No, it was just very lukewarm, just melted and all the lumps removed. That's it. You can use Corcho chocolate for this collar, but you need to temper it. Crumb coat is not very important. I skip it sometimes. Will it not break while wrapping? No, right now when I did the wrapping part, the chocolate was still flexible, okay? The temperature here in the room is not enough to solidify it like a, solidify it so that it cracks. So it's still in that temperature where it's still flexible. So you got to make use of that window and you got to wrap it up. The recipe will yield 2 layers. So in order to make 3 layers, just do 1.5 times of the recipe. Simple. The cremo and the compote has been set with agar agar, so they will not melt. Don't worry. Guys, someone's asking, the texture of all the layers in the cakes are different. When we cut through the layers, won't the textures differ? This is just, I'm just demonstrating you an eggless and an egg recipe. It doesn't, like, you guys don't have to use one eggless and one egg recipe. You can all use one recipe only. So the texture will all be the same. I am just demonstrating you because we made one eggless and one egg, that's why. Will the cake not slide due to frozen inserts in case there is no chocolate collar? Yes, that is why we are also using chocolate collar, because that's a great idea to put the chocolate collar so the layers won't slide and then they won't completely melt. It also protects the entire thing by keeping everything together. What can we do with the excess white compound? You can scrape it back, you can melt it, you can reuse it. This cake can travel well in an AC car, but not in a bike or in a hot room temperature. But an AC car is fine. Okay, how can we make it to 1 kg? See, if I'm doing a recipe that yields 1.5 kg, how will you do it 1 kg? You guys tell me, because I don't want to spoon feed everything. If a recipe is yielding 1.5 kilo, how will you scale the recipe down to 1 kilo? I will not be spoon feeding. This is basic maths. You can let me know the answers. The brand of cocoa powder is Calabo. I did not mix anything in white chocolate. This cake is to be served from the refrigerator, of course. How to store the unbeaten whipping cream in the fridge or freezer? It needs to ideally go in the freezer, and whenever you need it, you need to thaw it to liquid consistency in the fridge, and then you need to beat it. Will the white chocolate collar melt when it comes to room temperature? No, it will not melt, because compound is more stable, and plus it is in touch with the cold cake, so it will not melt. Ratio for white chocolate mousse, I'm not going to say it because it's not in the scope. Thickness of white collar is going to be like damn thin. I'll show you when it's out. What is the ratio to be used for chocolate ganache? I'm having a hard time to set my cakes even after increasing the ratio of the chocolate. I think for summers you can use 2:1 if you are finding it very difficult, but we generally use 1:1 or 1.5:1. But if you're finding it difficult, you can use 2:1 also. Okay, someone asked, what is the reason for cracks on the whipping cream? This is fine. Some ribbons we have. Pink. Just a minute, guys. I'm just coming on to every comment. Okay, so what's the reason for the cracks on frosted whipped cream cakes after it's been in the fridge for hours? So basically, any frosting cracks means in the fridge, it means that the cream has been over whipped and the moisture has been sucked out from the cream. Okay, so example, like you have drought lands and all, When the water is completely evaporated out from the grounds, you see a lot of cracks, right? So basically the cream that you're using has been over whipped and has been devoid of moisture, right? So what you need to do is you need to make sure not to over whip your cream. The cream has to be shiny still, stiff and shiny, okay? And then when you store it in the fridge, put it in a box, cover it, cling wrap it if you can, and then put it. So then there's less chances of cracking inside the fridge. Thank you. Can we use Morde for chocolates instead of Van Houten? You can use. Try to deliver your cakes during summer in cars if you can. Just explain to the client why you're sending it in a car. I'm sure they'll understand. How you stuck 2 sheets of OHP together? I used a sellotape to stick it together. Thank you, Asha. Doesn't the frozen compote make it difficult to cut? We will be cutting it only after some time. So the insert is very, very thin, okay. The inserts that we did today are very thin. They will thaw in no time, okay. Within 20 minutes they will be thawed. So by the time your session is over, it will be thawed. Don't worry. So if your whipping cream is not coming to stiff peaks, make sure to chill your bowl, freeze your beater and work in an AC room. By then it should come to stiff peaks. I did not use a dairy whipped cream, I used a non-dairy whipped cream only. Please don't use compounds for ganache. Please use only real chocolate for ganache. When you add compound in your product, it gives a very bad greasy aftertaste, which many people can understand, okay. So real chocolates have cocoa butter in them as fat content, okay. So cocoa butter melts in your body temperature. Body temperature is around 37 degrees. So it will melt in our body temperature, okay. So whereas if you use compound has vegetable fat, okay. Vegetable fat will not melt in your palate. It will leave a greasy aftertaste in your palate. So that's why it's not very pleasant. Something melts in your mouth, you feel like, oh my god, it's so good, and you want to have it again. That wow factor is missing in the compound. So just because of the budget, many people go for compounds, but you will not get repeat clients if you use very bad quality ingredients. So that's the takeaway. Is there any other way to secure the cake from sliding if we don't use chocolate collar? If you do a naked cake, then you can use the acetate strip itself to cover the sides. But if you have applied cream around the sides, then chocolate collar is the only way. Any other icing that will go apart from whipped cream? You can use buttercream also for this. But since everything is very like light and creamy, I would like to use this with whipped cream. If you don't cover the cake with collar, how to secure the crème from sliding out? You can use a better frosting that is more stable like buttercream or ganache. Then you can prevent it from sliding out. Exactly. So 75% of the recipe will give 1 kg. That's right. So you need to scale down everything. Just multiply everything by 0.75. Then you will get 1 kg cake. Okay, so let's finish. The final assembly. Okay, we still have one more Q&A by the end of the class. So let's finish the cakes and the chocolate loaf and then we'll continue, okay? Yeah. Akash, this can go here. Yeah. I need the... Yes, I need... I need the loaf cake. Okay, am I on the camera? Okay, so I'm going to finish the chocolate loaf. I'll use the freshly baked one. So I'm going to remove the parchment paper. Little bit, yes. Okay, so I'm going to just pipe on top, pipe the ganache. White base. Why? The chocolate cake is not seen, is it? Okay. Okay, I'll put it on this tray. I'll put it on this tray now. Ceramic plate. Round. This is fine, it's okay. Now can you see? Now is it seen? Okay. Yeah. So now I'm just going to use the ganache and pipe some design on top. So I'm using a star nozzle and I'm just doing a swirl kind of a design. Okay, and to this I'm going to just stick some caramelized nuts. A little more. So just adding some caramelized nuts here and there. Okay, so you can just keep it at room temperature for 1 or 2 days also, this cake, because it's more like a travel cake. It stays fine outside for some 2 days at least in the heat. Then you can put it in the fridge if you want to store it for a longer time. Okay, we'll take the other cake also. Yeah, leave it here. So this you can just keep the camera mounted here and keep this view itself, Akash. You can keep this view alone. Top view is almost done. So once I finish the cake in this live, I will cut this live and I will start another live where we will be doing a more detailed Q&A on baking business, how you can develop your business, all of those kind of things. We will start in another live, okay? Anyway, what's the time now? (2:00). Okay. Right. So it has been in the freezer for a few minutes. Now you can see because it was in the freezer, the acetate sheet started peeling away by itself. Okay, so here on top I'm going to be using some fresh cherries because strawberries have almost gone out of season. So I'm just going to arrange these cherries. Pavi, I think we need more cherries. Cherries I need everything, whatever I kept aside. Okay, so I'm adding cherries to the decor. Thank you. Thanks. Just another round of cherries inside. Mangoes he's cutting. Okay. So fruits, these are non-cut fruits, like cherry is a non-cut fruit, but if you're using strawberry or any like mangoes, if you're chopping the fruits, what you can do is you can take some neutral glaze, okay? Neutral glaze is available on Amazon. New gel or neutral glaze, what you can do, you can just see I have some neutral glaze here. It's basically like a thick syrup. It's like a thick syrup, okay? So I'm just going to add the mangoes to it and I'm going to toss it around so that they're all covered in that thick syrup. So that will keep the shine of the fruits and it'll keep it fresh for a longer time. Okay, if you don't have access to new gel, no problem. You can just boil some sugar syrup until it's nice and thick. You can use a little bit of the syrup also. Not too much, just a little bit, moderate the amount. So I'm just going to add the mangoes in between. And then I'm just going to finish off with some ribbon and some flower. Flower and ribbon. So I'm going to do a gentle knot. Okay, you can put some flowers on top. Okay, so that's our cake. That's our cake, and this is our chocolate loaf cake, and this is our beautiful strawberry and mango but with cherries on top. So what we will do now, I'll just break this live at the moment. If there are any Q&A in this step, you can let me know. I'll be open for 2 minutes and then I'll break the live and start another live again for the detailed Q&A on business development and all of those things, okay? Non-recipe related. Quiz also. Yeah, actually I have a quiz now. Can you guys stay back to attend the quiz? Just 2 minutes. Okay, we'll do the quiz now, Akash. Okay, so now what will happen is you're going to have questions come up on your screen and it's a multiple choice questions, okay? So you're going to answer them. Okay, so Akash is doing it, okay? Let me know if you start seeing questions on your screen. Okay, question number 1. Agar set what temperature? You can choose it, okay? 25 degree or less, 40 to 45 degrees or 65 degrees. Okay? Yes, I'm able to choose. Okay? Done? If you've answered, we'll go to the next question. Next question. Okay. So you should see the right answers on your screen. Yes. Percentage, yes, I'm able to see the percentage. Oh, okay, most of them got it right. 66% people have got it right. So it is 40 to 45. You'll see the right answer on your screen. Okay? Can't see quiz. Many people can't see the quiz. Next to the chat. Okay, next to the comment section, there should be a button to see the quiz. Okay? Great. Next question. If you can't see the quiz, no problem. I'm reading out the question to you. You can write the answer in the comment section. Second question. Whole wheat cakes turn out dense due to the presence of like the first option is gluten. Second option is fiber. Third option is starch. What's the right answer? Whole wheat cakes turn out dense due to the presence of what? Whole wheat cakes turn out dense due to the presence of gluten or fiber or starch. Yeah, I have this. I have the chat. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, you can show the results. Great. Most of you got it right. So fiber is the right answer. Because of the fiber, I told you, they are like tiny pieces of blade that will not allow the gluten strands to expand and hold the structure. Okay, that is the reason. So fiber is the right answer. Gluten is not the right answer. Okay, next question. While making a cake, the order of addition of ingredients is not important. True or false? While making the cake, the order of addition of ingredients doesn't matter. Any order you put is fine. True or false? Okay, you can show the results. This is easy question. Okay, false. Right. Great. 100% false. Amazing. Okay, next question. कौन बनेगा करोड़पति? Okay, question number 4. If eggs have to be replaced in cakes, we need more than one replacer. True or false? If eggs have to be replaced in cakes, we need more than one replacers. True or false? Okay, now show the answer, Akash. True. Okay, 74% of you have got it right. So if eggs have to be replaced in an eggless cake, you need more than one ingredient, or mostly you need more than one ingredient to replace for the role of the eggs. Okay. Question number 5. Okay. If a cake is too sweet, the sugar can be reduced and the results will remain the same. True or false? If the cake is too sweet, the sugar can be reduced to any extent and the results will remain the same. False. Great. That's the right answer. And Anandi has told me the right answer. Up to 20% you can reduce in most recipes, but not more than that. Okay. Yes. Can be reduced by 20%. Right. Next question, Akash. Why should we use spatula and fold the flour gently into the batter? First option is to avoid deflating the batter. Second option is to avoid gluten formation. Third one, to avoid batter from getting too thick. Which one's the right answer? Why should we use a spatula and fold the flour gently into the batter? Right, click the right answer. Okay, so you can show the right answer, Akash. Right? Achas. Oh, that's nice. 100%, almost all of you have chosen the right answer. To avoid gluten formation is the right answer. Yes, to avoid deflating also, but mainly to avoid gluten formation. Next question, Akash. Next question. Okay, next question. Using melted butter and soft butter in a cake yields the same result. True or false? Using melted butter and soft butter. Are you also answering? Using melted butter and soft butter in a cake yields the same result. True or false? Okay. False. Great. Right answer. You can show the results and you've shown it? Okay, next question. Great, all of you are right. Next question. Acha. Okay. Question number 8. If chocolate ganache splits and looks broken or curdled, that is because, look at the options, okay? Number 1, the chocolate was overheated. Number 2, the cream was overheated. Number 3, the emulsion did not form well. And number 4, it could be any of the above. I'm asking my people also the quiz. And they're also answering. Good. Okay, so the right answer could be, the right answer is it could be any of the above. Because even if the chocolate is overheated or the cream is overheated or the emulsion didn't form well, it could look broken. Okay, so any of the above could be the right answer. Perfect. Next question, Akash. Actually, I didn't realize this quiz could happen in a Facebook group. Just yesterday we discovered. It's a nice, fun way to keep the audience engaged. Okay, next question. What is the temperature of caramel? 150 degrees, 160 degrees, 170 degrees. What's the temperature of caramel? Right, you shown the right answer? Okay. At 160, the caramel could be like little, like it'll be orange in color, but I think 170 is the dark amber color. Okay. Great. So for the last question. For whipping cream, what's the minimum fat percentage the cream should have? 30, 35%, 38%. What's the minimum fat percentage the whipping cream should have? Whipping cream. Click the right answer. That's nice. So the right answer is 35%. Okay? 35% is the right answer. 30 is way less for holding air. 35% is the right amount of fat, so it can hold the air in it. Okay. That's the end of our short fun quiz. So I'm going to cut the live now, and I will start the live in about 2 minutes, and then whoever wants to stay back for the business development and anything regarding your issues, in your issues regarding baking business, you can discuss with me and I will sit with you and answer all of these. You can also bring your lunch along and have it. Even I'm going to do the same. I'm also going to have munch on something and I'm going to be on the live. Okay? Great. I look forward to seeing all of your creations on this group. This group will remain for another 1 month, and I'll be there to help out whatever happens. So I'll be starting a new thread in this group called doubts and clarifications. And any doubts and clarifications that you might have, please drop it in the same thread and I will answer it in the comments. Okay. Okay, someone wants to show the slice of the cake. Can we bring the hot knife? Yes, we will do that in a minute. Thank you so much everybody for contributing and then joining in the live. You all made it amazing. Yes. So all of the details of the contributions, the total that we made, the deductions for the InstaMojo platform, and all of these will be shared with you guys right after the session. And the drive link will be shared with you in this group. You can go have a look, click on it, see all of the transparent calculations for you. Thank you so much everyone. Loved it, loved being with you guys. It was nice and interactive. Yes, we are going to cut the cake in a minute. Okay, so the quiz questions, I made it little easy because I know a lot of you are beginners. But yeah, I also wanted to inform one more thing. I have a special gift on my behalf because you all trusted me and contributed for this cause and made a huge impact in many animals' lives. So on from my side, I want to gift you guys a coupon code of 15% off on any of the courses on my website. So usually none of my courses ever go on discount, and this is the first time I'm giving you a discount of 15%. I will share the discount code coupon also on this group, and it's valid only for 1 week. It's only valid for 1 week, so I will share that also on the group later on. Okay, so you can just put the course in the cart and you can put the coupon code and then you can check out. You will get a 15% discount on any of the courses on my website. Thank you so much, Kavya. Thank you everybody, and hope to see many of the new people here again in more of my workshops. Yeah, it's ready? Great. Now we are going to cut the cake. Which view are we in? Top view. So can we go to the side view? Yeah. So I have this huge chef knife. Look at this huge chef knife. I have dipped it in hot boiling water. Okay. I am going to, ribbon I'm going to, I'll just keep it. Let's remove the ribbon and the flowers, all of these. So wipe off the water. Okay, you can also see how thin the chocolate collar is now. Okay, take it all the way out. Can we zoom in? Is it done? Does it look good? Okay, so this is how it looks from the inside. Very easy, simple recipes for the filling if you want to do like nice layers like this for flavor, other different flavors. Okay, so I'll also cut the chocolate loaf, show you the texture. For this I would actually prefer a serrated knife because it got a lot of stuff inside like the nuts and the chocolate. Okay, so this is how it looks, like this. Okay, it's quite moist and fudgy inside. Little pieces of nuts and some, small pools of chocolate here and there. Okay, you can also add big chunks of chocolate if you want to have pools of chocolate oozing out. Okay, so this is how it looks. Can't wait for you guys to try it out. Share it in this group and see you guys very, very soon. Now I'll start another live in 2 minutes and then we'll meet and talk about more about business. Okay, see you guys. Bye.